All right, so those are all, okay, so to you folks, at least our speaker this morning will be new to you. To those who've been here longer than 6 years, you'll remember Elizabeth as one of our dynamic youth leaders. She went off and graduated from St. Mary's College, appropriately enough, in California, and is now a second-year graduate student at the Church Divinity School of the Pacific. She is sponsored for ordination to the diaconate and priesthood in the Episcopal Church by St. Mary's. Her discernment committee was here, and the vestry has been supportive of her, and it is our wonderful opportunity and blessing to welcome her home for this weekend and to give her our continued love and prayers and blessings. Elizabeth Ashman. Yay.
My mother recently told me that after having my sister Jenny, she expected her second child to be just like the first. I, however, could not be more different. This is not only in appearance, but in personalities and lifestyles. My sister Jenny is an actress, an extrovert, and she follows the faith of our father. She is Jewish. I am quieter in most situations, I know not here. And obviously I have chosen the Christian path of my mother. Yet, since the time we were children, when we were given our choice to be Christian or Jewish or not religious at all, we understood that there was no wrong choice. Instead, we were guided to do what felt right in our hearts and what filled us. God was big enough to love us no matter what we chose. Even as two people born of the same parents, we came out different and unique. In that respect, Jacob and Esau are the same as us. They each led different lives and found different paths. However, they fought over their birthright. It could only belong to one. Their story is common in the Old Testament, brothers divided in vocation and in blessing either by God or their parents. In the Jewish tradition, birthright and blessing can be synonymous. How do we read this story differently when we think of siblings arguing over the blessing of their parent, of God? As very young children, we lived in the valley, and my sister and I did not attend religious services yet. However, my grandmother, being Christian, would still give us religious gifts, including a nativity scene that was given to my sister. When I was 3, the nativity scene mysteriously went missing, and I began carrying a lunchbox with me everywhere I went. My family searched for her missing treasure, and I denied knowledge or involvement in such events, up to and including the moment when my parents opened the lunchbox and found the nativity scene. No matter how we are raised, and no matter how much we love our siblings, rivalry takes place. We argue over toys, over love, over who is more talented or more deserving. This is all part of the wealth of emotion we experience as human beings. Paul speaks of the release we have in the Spirit of Christ when we are no longer enslaved in the flesh. I do not interpret Paul's words to be of the body, but of being human, of being susceptible to emotions of anger and jealousy and sadness. In faith, we are given a path that doesn't release us from emotions because we never cease to be human, and that's okay. But we are given a healthy way to approach what can hurt our well-being. In our society, and specifically in our religious communities, we tend to fight with our brothers and sisters. Sometimes it is with our siblings in Christianity, either other denominations or even other Episcopalians. Often, it is with our brothers and sisters of the other Abrahamic and Eastern faiths. Though we come from the same parent and and share scriptures and prophets and a way of living that is with a belief in the higher power. We fight. We argue over birthrights. We argue over who truly receives the blessing of the Creator. Jesus tells us the parable of the sower and the soils. He explains the parable which ultimately comes down to the need for good soil and patience. Seeds in shallow soil on rocks will blossom and die quickly. Seeds on pure rock will never sprout anything. It takes deep roots. It takes time. Any person that has ever gardened knows the importance of understanding different seeds and their needs. This is a lesson I learned from my father in the late spring every year when we would do our summer planting. Different seeds must be planted at different times. Our vegetables went into planter boxes as soon as it was warm enough. We placed them against the fence so the peas could grow up the chain links and have support throughout the season. Tulips, on the other hand, went into the ground in late September to wait the long Alaskan winter before blossoming in spring. Seeds are all different despite their similarities. We each require different soil. My soil has been unique, as is everyone else's soil, be it my family of interfaith living, of attending Jewish services with my sister and father, and then of growing up first in the Catholic Church and then here at St. Mary's. This is the soil that has fed me and allowed me to grow into the person I am. And I am thankful for every person in this room for that support and love I've received over the years. But in addition to that, I have gone on to new soil, to the soil of Berkeley, California, where seminary is now feeding me. Sometimes we fall into the belief that because we are all human, we need the same faith to flourish and live good, fulfilling, and meaningful lives. In our excitement and passion for God, we forget that what has served us and filled us may not fill our neighbor. Our faith and our scripture tells us that God is the creator. God made heaven and earth. God made each of us here, including those of other faiths. We may be different, but we are brothers and sisters. Just as my sister and I turned out to be two unique individuals with very different needs, so are the many children of God's creation. I attend an Episcopal seminary called Church Divinity School of the Pacific. However, we are part of a larger group called Graduate Theological Union. Within these 9 seminaries and several centers of distinction, religious leaders and academic scholars are being raised up in a variety of faiths, not just Episcopal or Christian. We take courses with one another. We take classes at each other's schools and in each other's fields. We seek to look past our differences, and though we each maintain our individual identity, we acknowledge that there is much to be learned both academically and spiritually from one another. We do not question each other's callings or how genuine another's faith is. Faith is genuine even if it is different from our own. Even looking within our own Episcopal tradition and our congregation here, we see vast diversity in how we express our faith. Every Sunday, there are separate services using different rites and music in order to accommodate what each individual most needs. These differences within our own tradition became extremely prominent in my seminary classrooms. While I can find it fairly easy to agree to disagree with a person of a different denomination or faith, it becomes much harder within the Episcopal Church. Taking courses in such topics as Anglicanism or Introduction to Worship, we, this year's entrant class of CDSP, discovered that what we know to be our version of being Episcopalian is not true for everyone. It took some time for us to overcome these differences. They still crop up when we plan worship or attend services at local Episcopal communities. However, each of us has grown and strengthened in our identity because of these challenges. I believe everyone in my class would agree with me that we know ourselves better by being challenged and pushed by one another on what we believe. Rather than arguing over who is the true possessor of God's blessing, let us take this opportunity to enrich our own faith, our own soil, by embracing one another and learning from one another. Knowing your own faith and identity as an Episcopalian is important, but drawing from the wealth of blessings that God has bestowed on all people is equally important. Our seeds of faith will never flourish if we worry about the correctness of another's beliefs. We must tend to our individual soil. It takes work. It takes patience. We cannot plant seeds and leave them to hopefully sprout. Formation is continuous. It does not end at baptism or confirmation, but is a lifelong process. Education and devotion are vital to healthy spiritual lives, and sometimes this can come from an unexpected place, even from someone or somewhere that we usually label as outside of our faith. No person is an outsider if they are a child of God. Our faith teaches us that every person is born of the same Creator, therefore we are all God's children. If our faith is to grow, so must our minds and our hearts.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Now we'd like Lexi, who has the Wonder Box, to bring that up, and would all the little kids, younger members, come up, and we will see what we can learn about God from what Lexi has brought us this morning in the Wonder Box.